Raven has, especially in the last few months, been methodically testing new features and additions for the Warzone experience, with new features or small details that may seem like sort of sub-points or footnotes that then later turn out to be major adjustments to the gameplay feel and some fundamentals a bit down the road. And with Season 4, it seems like another one of those things looks to be added. So what's the big change here that could be coming, and is it good, bad, or just relatively neutral, and maybe when will we see this enacted later on for the larger picture? Today we're breaking it all down for you, so as we go along, drop your thoughts down below. Are you looking forward to this and other upcoming fundamental adjustments to Warzone? Is there anything in particular you'd like to see going forward in either the Warzone 1 experience or in Warzone 2? Drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, or you like the sound of this theory, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, do be sure to hit the subscribe button and stay there with all things Warzone, Modern Warfare 2, and anything COD related. We're on that road to 500,000 subscribers, so if you guys would like to stay on top of all of that, I'd love to have you in the community. And finally, if at any point during the current COD seasons you'd like to support the channel a little further, a great yet entirely optional way to do so is by using creator code Espresso in the support a creator function of the COD shop. Do not ever feel pressured to, but if you ever do, tweet me a picture. I'd love to shout out some of your generous support in upcoming videos. But anyways, let's jump into it. So first, when I say that Raven's sort of testing the waters, and they have been for a few months now, let's take a look at some of these fundamental changes that we can see where they kind of began as sort of footnotes, as sort of just minor details. On the smaller scale, we ended up seeing things like lootable perks. That's now a sort of mainstay and honestly a great addition, I think, for Warzone overall, but that was first added in Caldera. Then it later came over to Rebirth Island before sort of the entire experience now within Fortune's Keep. We saw oppositely the weapon trade stations started in Rebirth and then worked their way into Caldera. But on a larger scale, we've seen some bigger fundamental changes, like, well, the first initial loadout drop change that was reverted since then. But with Caldera in the launch here of that, you ended up having an inability to get a loadout drop before the first loadout event occurred. That was something that was first teased and was tested in Operation Flashback. The final days of Verdansk, that limited time mode, it didn't allow for loadouts to be bought in the buy stations until the loadout event, something that then would later be entirely implemented in the fundamentals of the game. Another huge fundamental change was health changes. Caldera ended up being the first 50 HP incremental increase that we saw, with Rebirth Island coming second. And if you want to get technical, technically Iron Trials was first, increasing that to like what, 350 or 400 HP. Then Caldera came second with that 300 HP increase, and then Rebirth third. And stemming from that, even Iron Trials is likened to the early phases of a ranked mode, even described by Raven's team as a sort of precursor to that, where they want to learn from that and build out a ranked experience. But with nothing coming in the Warzone 1 experience, these are just kind of the building blocks. So we've seen some other big stuff here in regards to that. Other things like AI in game, that started in the bunkers in Season 2 of Caldera. I can't recall off the top of my head if we had any of that stuff in Verdansk. I want to say yes, but I can't accurately remember that. But then we also had it move to Season 4 with the AI on Fortune's Keep. So we had multiple instances of this, and it's rumored to now be the sort of preview of what strongholds look like in Warzone 2. High-level loot areas protected by AI, where you have to take those out and then overtake that stronghold. Now, that said, that's what we've seen so far, but I think we actually are in the midst of another fundamental change upcoming, or preview of a fundamental change upcoming. With Season 4, scratch that, sort of pre-Season 4, it was rumored that we'd see Rebirth Island entirely wiped from existence, given that we'd never seen two maps of the same size coexist. I mean, when you look at it, Verdansk, that present-day version, was entirely removed for Verdansk 84. Verdansk 84 was then entirely removed for Caldera. Rebirth had thematic reskins happen where they didn't have both versions of that live at one time, so we'd never seen two coexisting maps in Warzone before. So when it was announced that Rebirth Island wouldn't be going away, that was the first time in the history of Warzone that we'd have 3 maps on offer. But what's this feature that is so important, perhaps? Well, it's actually upcoming, so the lead up to it has already started. Week 1 of Season 4, which has now come and gone, introduced us to solely Fortune's Keep in the map rotation. Week 2, which we're currently in, introduced us to the first time 3 maps on offer in Warzone: Caldera, then solos, duos, trios, and quads for Fortune's Keep, and quads Rebirth Island. Next week and the weeks following, weeks 3 and 4, will do the same, offering up quads for Rebirth Island and Fortune's Keep having solos through quads the entire way. But week 5, starting on July 21st, that's where it gets a bit interesting, because it's listed both Fortune's Keep and Rebirth Island solos, duos, trios, and quads, with asterisks on both. Now, if you're thinking, okay, it's kind of weird that we have now 12 different playlists across Caldera, Rebirth, and then Fortune's Keep, you'd be right, because those asterisks denote that Fortune's Keep and Rebirth Island will rotate daily at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So there we have it, our first introduction of a map rotation within Warzone. So while it's cool that we have 3 maps on offer all at once right now in varied capacities, the consolidated playlist into 2 main offerings helps to keep that player base entirely fluent the whole way through and doesn't risk running anything thin. But a map rotation, isn't that kind of what we've been asking for like a really long time? Isn't that what people wanted to see in terms of, say, revisiting Verdansk, or if we had other maps coming up, we could revisit Caldera, then Verdansk, and whatever else is upcoming. Now, if I'm a betting man, while we haven't seen the payoffs just yet for things like Iron Trials turning into a ranked mode, while we haven't seen this AI introduced in Caldera turn into strongholds just yet, like we'll see in Warzone 2 perhaps, and we haven't seen a map rotation offer up multiple maps just yet, I kind of have this feeling that it will happen in Warzone 2 as a result, seeing how the feedback of all of this works, especially now. I mean, logically, you're not going to launch a massive overhaul to how your game and the matchmaking systems work when you have a second experience coming later in the year, less than half a year away at this point. But long term, that's an incredible play for Warzone in my opinion. While with Warzone 2, this map rotation, I'm not really expecting it to be utilized immediately. If we have a brand new map the size of Caldera, the size of Verdansk, that is a massive map to not only one, make as a developer, then put through the ringer through QA so that there's no spots in the world that you can glitch through the map or anything like that, but also two, from a player perspective, that is a massive map and a lot of area to learn and master. Honestly, probably earliest that I'd say we'd maybe see one introduced is maybe like 6 months down the line. We're 7+ months into Caldera's introduction here into Warzone, and honestly, there's still some areas that I'm like, I forgot this existed. I forgot how to play this because I either one, don't visit them much, or two, just because it's such a big map. So to have the ability to have that new and fresh feeling map all together, yeah, you might be tired of Caldera, but the principle of it. Those larger scale maps are obviously much more massive undertakings than, say, Fortune's Keep or Rebirth Island. Smaller maps that are 1/10 the size of that map. But while I'm not expecting any other additional ones like this to be added in relatively soon after the launch of Warzone 2, a bit later down the line, absolutely perhaps, maybe late year 1, year 2, that's when we can start maybe getting more maps. And absolutely, I could see this utilized, rotating maps in and out depending on the day, week, month, season, whatever the case, especially if the reception testing we see right now turns out positive. Maybe we see Verdansk sprinkled in there as a sort of classic revisitation of the map at some point. That might just be wishful thinking, but I mean, right now that begs the question, absolutely. Why then and not now? Why can't we see this map rotation happen now, bring Verdansk back, and bring all these 4 maps on rotation? Well, one huge part of the puzzle to consider is that this is going to be Warzone 2, and Warzone 2 is going to be its own standalone application, a separate exe and game file for Modern Warfare 2. From the beginning, the biggest problem facing Warzone's existing experience and limitations here on it technically is that it's tethered to Modern Warfare 2019's application. Even at a free-to-play level, what you're downloading is a partitioned version of Modern Warfare 2019's application file. You're not actually downloading Warzone, no matter how much they want to rebrand it. So right now, when you consider the sheer scale of that plus all the Warzone maps, Caldera's like 10 times the size of Fortune's Keep, which then is also like 10 to 15% bigger than Rebirth. So when you think about the scaling of just those file sizes, you can have multiple maps in Resurgence because they're much smaller, but you add in even just a secondary regular BR map the size of Caldera, the size of Verdansk, that is going to skyrocket that file size. And whenever you consider that, you're going to start hitting caps with hardware performance, memory, storage, and all that kind of stuff. So in my opinion, it's much more likely to have that happen in something that doesn't have an additional base 20, 30 to 40 gigabytes of Modern Warfare associated with it, and some of that stuff fundamentally that you can't get rid of even if you end up uninstalling the separate packs of campaign, multiplayer, or spec ops. So add that in then with the fact that every time there is that 20 to 30, 40 gigabyte download for a brand new map or so, it's already been stated officially by Raven, and they even showcase some of the numbers and graphs to people like me that have sat in on preseason briefings and things like that. They lose a huge chunk of players when that happens, and I mean they lose them for good, not just like, we'll come back, we'll download it in a month. They actually just don't come back. So when you take out Modern Warfare, that base game asset, and you free up an absurd amount of space, and when it's specifically a separate experience in Warzone 2, maybe that's when it could work. You have a lot more free space to work with, both technically with hardware, and then also a lot less perhaps than is required on the download side of the player side of things. So a lot less stress on memory, storage, and a lot more on the ease of use for the player. That is something that I think in time could absolutely come of what is our first look at a map rotation here a couple of weeks from now. So that said, I was thinking about this, and honestly, when we think about how many things like that started as footnotes for Warzone as just minor changes that then turned into major changes, I think this absolutely could be one of them, and I want to share it with you guys because I thought it was an interesting topic here. Wanted to get your feedback on it, so drop your thoughts below. Do you think this is what's going to happen here? Do you think we're going to see a map rotation at some point within Warzone 2? Do you think maybe we'll even get it within Warzone 1? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare 2, Warzone, and anything COD related. I'd love to have you in the community. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.